is too full of photographs of the property I'm renting that I may need for evidence to prove that Nuneaton and Badworth Borough Council, when I contacted Environmental Health, didn't do their job properly. And also that my landlord, as well, unfortunately, like most people who rent, whether it's in the private housing sector, from the council directly, or even housing associations, that when you put in and say that there's an issue with the property, that it does not always get fixed straight away. I mean, there has been horror stories on social media where people have literally been waiting weeks and months for things to be repaired. And that's why there's so many people jumping on the bandwagon now, all these law firms and everything, to try and say, where there's a blame, there's a claim, you know, call us, no win, no fee. Because it is really, really hard to prove, and it is really, really hard to deal with. And to be honest, if I could have moved at any time over the 9 years that I've lived in this house, I would have. But unfortunately, at this moment in time, the private sector for renting is completely saturated. There is probably about 100 to 200 people bidding on the same properties. That's whether, and that is just to rent privately. For council, obviously, I can't comment because it varies from council to council, and the same with housing associations. You have to fit a certain criteria. So I've literally, for 9 years, every single property that I have tried to either view, put in an application for, the moment I have said that I'm on UC, which a lot of people are if you have children, because before universal credit kicked in, everything was split. So you got your working tax credit, you get your child tax credits, you got your child benefits, you got your housing benefits, you got job seekers allowance or income support allowance or disability living allowance or personal independent payments or carers allowance. Whatever it was always split. And what the government then decided to do was say, we're going to put everything under one umbrella, and it's going to be called universal credit. And it's going to make it easy for everybody. It's going to make it easy for people who work, who don't work, who work part-time. It's going to make it easier for employers. It's going to make it easier for the tax man. It's going to make it easier for the benefit system. But the moment anyone tries to rent in the private housing sector and says, I'm on universal credit, they will blacklist you. Okay, I don't care how much bullshit the council give you or people give you. If there is 100 people bidding on the same house, hi, sorry, I can't comment on my phone. They are not going to pick the person that is on universal credit. They are going to pick the person who is earning 30 to 40,000 a year, can prove that they have a regular income, and they're not going to need a guarantor. Probably drive a BMW, but then you would think if somebody was earning that kind of money, why would they be renting? Why would they not be a homeowner? And again, everyone seems to think that the moment you've got a really, really good job and you're earning 30 to 40,000 a year, that you could go out and buy a house. That's not always the case, because again, the property market for buying is also oversaturated. So what the problem people are having is, even though they might have the money to buy, they can't buy because a lot of estate agents want the houses on the market not to go to people that want it for themselves or for their family. They want it to go to buy-to-let landlords. They want it to go to people that want HMOs. They do not want houses for families. And I know this because for the last 10 years, every single house, again, I've put in an application for a mortgage, or at the time it used to be like Help to Buy scheme. The criteria was so rigid. And when COVID hit, that is when a lot of people struggled. The government was actually telling people that I know who were on that Help to Buy scheme that because they had paid into this Help to Buy scheme but were not working at that moment in time because of COVID, that they then had to get that money out of their bank and use that money to live on. But I don't think you could by law because it was kind of like protected. But that is kind of the attitude of the government. They want to give it you with one hand, but take it away with the other. And it's really, 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 really hard now for everybody to be in what I would call secure accommodation. And the main reason for my post tonight is obviously it's really, really cold today. And one of the things the government have already started to give people, again, it's means tested, which I think is really stupid. And not everybody's entitled to it. And it's just absolutely ridiculous, is the cold winter payments. So if you think you may be entitled to what is called a cold winter payment, then I would check. If the government think you are entitled to it because you somehow fit into some certain criteria, then you'll get a letter through the post and it will say, congratulations, or this is a letter to tell you you've been in receipt of a cold winter payment. But there will be those few people that have maybe not transferred onto universal credit yet, or are still transitioning. And believe me, I'm swearing now, it's a real son of a bitch. It took the Department of Work and Pensions to transfer me from all the old, what they called legacy benefits, from March till September. So from March till September of this year, instead of receiving what they would say is, oh, you'll get a monthly income of this amount, I didn't. And it's not just happened to me, it's happened to so many people. And you have literally got to be like red hot with them. You've got to be like, well, hang on a minute. What part of UC is now my child benefit? What part of UC would be classed as child tax credits or working tax credits or, whatever it was you were on before? And unless you were on the old system, there was no kind of support for you. So again, anyone who, like, if you were unfortunate and you ended up having to claim universal credit because you were made redundant or you were too ill to work anymore and you'd never claimed anything in your life, the moment you got put on UC, you'd be looking at 5 weeks before your first pay. And they would trick you. So be careful if you're not already in receipt of any benefits. They'll say, oh, by the way, we're not going to pay for 5 weeks, but we can give you what is called an advancement. And what they'll do is they'll give you so much money that they think you're going to need to live on for 5 weeks. And then they'll make you pay it back out of your benefit. So by the time you've paid it all back, realistically, you haven't just lost 5 weeks of money. You've probably lost an entire year because it's all prorated. And that is what's happened with all of the old legacy benefits as well. So a lot of people have found where they may have been paid weekly or fortnightly, and now they're being paid monthly, they are actually losing money from the government. And it's not just like a couple of pennies here and there. For some people, we're talking like almost $1,000. All right. When they did mine, like I said, it took them from April till September to sort out my benefits. So my son, who is disabled, I wasn't getting his disability subsidy from the Department of Work and Pensions. Whereas prior to being put on UC, I got it straight away. Filled in all the what are they called? That company in town that help you. Citizens Advice. They said to me, bring in all your paperwork, bring in all your medical evidence, bring in everything for your child. We'll fill in all the paperwork for you. All you've got to do is sign it. And that is what I would say to anyone. Go and see the Citizens Advice Bureau, or if you have problems with housing, go see Shelter. But you have to ring them or go on their website. So again, they're not very accessible for people who don't have phones or internet access. But usually your Citizens Advice Bureau is your first point of call. And they will help you, okay? They have helped me leaps and bounds over the last sort of 10 years of my life. Prior to that, they weren't as good, and I will admit that. There's been times where they've been absolute shit because they're volunteers and they aren't always trained properly. But the training they now receive, I would say, is probably 50 to 60% better than what they were in receipt of 10 years ago. So citizens' advice and shelter, even your local council will say, go to your CAB office, go seek shelter. And like I said, they filled in all the paperwork, and up until everyone started getting transferred onto universal credit, everyone was happy. And then UC kicks in, and the amount of people that I know, like myself, have had to wait up to 5 to 6 weeks for benefits that they were getting once a week or once a month or once a fortnight, to have it all come in one lump sum at the end of the month on a day that they allocate. You do not get to pick the day you want to be paid either. It's an absolute minefield. So if you are renting, say privately, for example, and you've got a contract in your tenancy agreement, it says, I'm going to pay my landlord on, say, the 23rd of every month, for argument's sake. Universal Credit might not pay you on the 23rd. They might pay you on the 1st or on the 15th or whatever day they allocate you. So you then have to have the mindset and the discipline to say to yourself, right, okay, this is when I'm going to get this money. It's going to be a lump sum. It's not going to be like when I was on when you're on like housing support or housing benefits, where it's like 2 payments within a month. It's one payment, and you have to say to yourself, right, that payment, that £1,000 or whatever it is you're given by the government, part of that is going to be to support your housing, and part of it will then be for food, gas, electric, etc., or child benefits or child tax credit or working tax credit or whatever it is they've like put into your UC. And to be honest, it's really, really challenging, and it's really, really hard, especially when so many people in the UK, English isn't their first language. So I'm not talking about people coming over here and being refugees and claiming asylum or anything like that. I'm talking, they might speak a little bit of English, but not everybody's first language is going to be English. And even those that are born in the UK, because we're given such a piss poor basic state, if you want to call it state, government education, most people are leaving school without GCSEs, but it's not even called GCSEs anymore, it's called something else. And so to try and expect people to sort of, log in, check how much they've been paid, work out whether or not they've even been paid correctly is really, really, really hard. And 9 times out of 10, people haven't got time to do that because they're working. So citizens' advice, although it's a bit of a ball ache, they are open in Nuneaton. They're open 3 days a week. So if you are struggling, you can phone them and try and make an appointment. Or what they'll do is they'll tell you to sit and wait at the Nuneaton Bedworth Council House and do what they call a drop-in session. So the main things I wanted to mention today was, if you've not had your cold winter payment yet, make sure you check to see whether you're entitled to that. If you're claiming UC already, or if you are looking or having to claim UC, bear in mind you're looking at 5 weeks before they pay you. And it's probably worth getting the Citizens Advice Bureau to do a benefit calculation for you, just to make sure you are being paid correctly. All right. Most people I know who are actually claiming universal credit do work. So they don't get the full amount. They get like something stupid, like 50 quid a month or something. But would you rather claim and not have that money? Sorry, claim and have that money, or not claim and not have it. It's one of them, ask you don't get, don't ask you don't want. And especially people with children, going on to universal credit wasn't something anyone really wanted to do, as far as I know, not the people I've spoken to. It was something they had to do. So in order for them to, like I said, to get child tax credit, to get working tax credit, which is now part of universal credit, they had no choice but to claim. And because now on your bank statements, it will not say child tax, working tax, carers allowance. Well, it will still say carers allowance and personal independent payments, and it will also say disability living or state pension, or if you get something, if you've fought for the country, there's like some kind of payment that you get if you've been in the armed forces. And all your potential landlord or estate agent is going to see is UC, universal credit. They're not going to know what you're getting that universal credit for. They're not even going to know what part of that universal credit may potentially be housing or child tax credit or working tax credit or standard weekly living allowance or whatever it is the government want to pay you. All they're going to see is, oh, you're claiming universal credit, therefore we are not going to take you as a tenant. And this is why there are so many people at this moment in time who are homeless, or as I class them as the hidden homeless. So they might be sofa surfing or staying with friends or loved ones temporarily, but they constantly have to move on. And it is unfortunate that that is happening. And today, like I said, cold winter payments, if you haven't already been in receipt of one, or you think you might be entitled to one, claim it. Phone up. I think you have to phone up the Inland Revenue for that one, not the Department of Work and Pensions. If you have to claim UC, they won't pay you for about 5 to 6 weeks for your first payment, and then they'll pay you every month on the set date they give you. But today is very, 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 very important that people are made aware of this. I have just put my bin out and it is cold. Like, not just cold, there is literally frost on the cars, on the bins, on every single surface outside. So I checked on my phone and it does actually say that the temperature today is 0. And it looks like over the next couple of days, we are going to be heading into what they call the minuses because it's the winter. Hi, thank you if you've just joined. I apologise, I can't comment. So at this time of the year, there is always a lot of information and a lot of adverts on TV about charities that support homelessness or people in poverty. So, you'll have all the Christmas ones for like Crisis, Centrepoint, Salvation Army, the Royal British Legion. They would have been doing loads and loads of campaigns through November because of Remembrance Day. And they're all going to be on the TV. Again, I've seen so many for the Mary Curie, which is the cancer charity. And one of the things that one of them did, which unfortunately I couldn't do that day and I was so gutted, they actually did a camp out for homelessness at a beach somewhere in the UK. And you just had to pay a donation basically and sleep on the beach in a sleeping bag. And that was in October. And I was so gutted that I wasn't able to go there because I really would have liked to have participated in that. But at this time of year, there used to be so much support for homelessness in my hometown in Nuneaton and Bedworth, because all of the churches in Nuneaton and Bedworth would get funding to support homelessness, and they would do what is called like sleep shelters. And I remember one year they were like asking for things. They were asking for toiletries. They were asking for clothes that you didn't want anymore for the homelessness. So I just remember going into Poundland and just buying loads of toothbrushes, loads of like shower gel and stuff. And I just filled up a bag and I took it to the church. And the other thing they wanted was socks. So I literally just tipped out my entire sock drawer with my children and I took them. And I said, look, I know they're not paired and I can only apologise, but the good thing about socks is they're great for your feet. They're fantastic if you layer them up, especially if like you haven't got really good shoes on in the winter. It's always a good idea to have a spare pair of socks in your bag just so you're on the safe side. And they're good for gloves as well. So I've even in the past, when I couldn't find my gloves at home, I've put a pair of socks on my hands. And people will think you're weird, but they're like mittens in a way. And so I always would give all the stuff, even coats, bubble hats, scarves, thermal leggings, thermal like long johns and stuff, things I know I wasn't going to use that winter. I would donate them to the church. And now they don't do it anymore. Nuneaton and Bedworth have not, apparently, since COVID, they have not done homeless shelters in Nuneaton at any of the churches. And it is such a shock to the system that has stopped. I don't know what it's like in other towns or cities, but Nuneaton have stopped it completely. And because I am going to be homeless in the next couple of weeks, I have asked the council and I've said, look, you know, what am I supposed to do when my Section 21 comes up and I become evicted and I become homeless? And they basically turned around and said, well, if we haven't got availability for you, you just have to go sleep on the street. And I'm looking at the weather right now and we are literally getting into the minuses. So I'm thinking, hi, thank you, Lucy, Poppy. You're probably the only two people I've actually mentioned. So I do apologise that I haven't said hi to anyone else. And I'm thinking, but hang on a minute. You're telling me I've got to go and sleep on the streets when before lockdown, I could have gone and stayed at a sleep shelter at one of the churches. And in Nuneaton, we are inundated with churches. There are so many out there. And one of the things I like doing with my children, I'm not religious, but Messy Church is an absolute go-to place. And I've always said to people, if you're struggling to feed your kids and you're like on the poverty line and you're really, really, really struggling, go to Messy Church. And they're like, Messy Church, what's that? And I went, basically, every single church in Nuneaton or wherever you live now do what is called Messy Church. And it's to encourage young people and sort of indoctrinate them into Christianity. But you go along, you sing some songs, you play some games, you might learn stuff about the Bible, but in a fun way. So, you know, like at Christmas, the children got to make Christingles. They got to do a little bit of a nativity set on paper. They got to colour in the Star of David. The star with the three wise men underneath. They got to... What else do they get to do? Got to make a snowman out of cotton wool balls. And you do that, and then you sing some songs, and then you listen to the Christmas story about how Jesus was born in the stable, and Mary got told by the angel Gabriel that he was the Son of God. And then after you've done all that, you go and have something to eat, and you don't have to pay. You can donate if you want, but you don't have to pay. And if you was to do that with every single church in where you live, in the town, city, whatever, I will guarantee you that for 4 days out of every month, you would have a hot meal for you and your family. And who knows, maybe you'll enjoy it that much that you might want to keep going back to church. But that is one of the things that the church have not got rid of, and that is Messy Church. So even after when COVID ended, Messy Church came back, and it's absolutely brilliant, and I love it so much, and the kids love it. And the one we go to, they are really child-led, they're really child-friendly. They do like barbecues in the summer for Father's Day, and they email you like once a month just to check that you're okay. During COVID, I was on a mailing list, and they were literally going around every single house in the borough that was on their mailing list and giving them food hampers. And again, that is what community is all about. That is what, you know, that's what I love about going to church. It's not for the religious side of stuff. It's for the community. It's for the fact that I can walk in there and I'm not judged. The people that I meet, they are so open. They are so friendly. They are so supportive. And they're not trying to say, oh, you didn't go to church last week. Where were you? None of that ever happens. Some places might be a little bit more cliquey than that. It's like any organisation. But it just gobsmacks me that the Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council now do not offer homeless shelters for people that are homeless. And for them to turn around and say to me, oh, you know what, when you become homeless in December, if we don't think you're a high enough priority, we won't house you. So what I have decided to do is my landlord's going to have to take me to court to evict me. I have done nothing wrong. I have paid my rent every single month without fail. And the only reason, in my opinion, my landlord is making me homeless is because they do not want to fix the house anymore, because it is costing them too much time and too much money. Whereas if they'd have just done one thing, which I asked them to do in 2021, and that was to fix the gutter in that was leaking, all of the internal damage this house has been subjected to and will continue to be subjected to would not have happened if they had fixed the gutter in. And I have got photographic evidence to back that up. I have got email after email after email, text message after text message after text message, photograph after photograph. I've got emails and photos I have sent to Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council. I've got emails and photos I've sent to Environmental Health. And they have all turned around and said, there's nothing wrong with the gutter in, it's fine, it's not causing damage to the property. Well, actually, that it is. Because if it wasn't, the tiles wouldn't have fell off in the bathroom 5 weeks ago. And I told my landlord, I phoned them up, I emailed them, and I said, look, because you've not fixed the gutter in, the tiles have fell off in the bathroom. 3 days later, they Section 21 me. So I would say to anyone, this is what I got told by the council, that when you're Section 21, one moment they were telling me go straight to the council house, and the moment you get evicted, and we'll try and support you. The next minute they're telling me don't do that, because if you do, you have intentionally made yourself homeless, and we will not support you. So within the last 5 weeks, I have spoken with the housing prevention team, and every conversation I've had with them over the last 5 weeks has just been like contradictory all the time, and they won't give you anything in writing to back it up. So 1 minute they're saying, come to the council house, we'll support you, we'll support your family, we'll support your children. It's not your fault if you've been made homeless. You'll get a place to live within 24 hours. Next minute they're telling me, we won't house you, and you'll be classed as in making yourself intentionally homeless. And then if we do decide to house you, we have up to 56 working days. So they're not talking about Saturday and Sunday. They're talking about working days from the council. So they're talking Monday to Friday. So 56 days, including Monday to Friday, not Saturday and Sunday. They will have to rehouse someone if they've been made homeless, providing they do not believe that you have made yourself intentionally homeless. And what's happening at the moment, because I think somebody's asked about Section 21s, is at the moment, unfortunately, Section 21s are still legal. Landlords in the private housing sector, council properties, housing association properties, can still, at this moment in time, Section 21 you. It's classed as what they call a no-fault eviction. Now, the government has been trying to roll in some kind of law or legislation for this year, which will probably not be legal until next year. So we're looking at 2026, to prevent people from being evicted from properties under a Section 21. So what they're saying is Section 21s are no longer going to be valid. And what that is a no-fault eviction. It means they do not have to give the tenant a reason as to why they no longer want you to live in the property. It could be for any reason they want, but they don't even have to give you a reason. And it's not as cut and dry as people seem to think it is. So I'm really struggling with this, to be honest. And the main reason I'm struggling is because Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council keep changing the information they give you. They'll say one thing on their website, they'll tell you something different when you speak to them, and then they'll tell you something completely different in an email. And one of the things they keep saying to me is, we need your bank statements, we need your children's birth certificates, we need to know if you're claiming anything off the government. We need a copy of your passport to prove that you're not an immigrant, because my name's foreign. People have probably read my name online and you've realised that I don't have a British sounding name. So I've already dealt with racism from Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council because they've took one look at my surname and they're assuming that I'm not British, that I wasn't born here, and that I'm like some kind of asylum seeker. And I keep going into the council and I keep emailing them, I keep phoning them, and I keep saying, how many times have I got to bring in my passport? How many times have I got to bring in my children's birth certificates? How many times have I got to bring in my birth certificate? In the last 5 weeks, I have given them the same documentation about 20 times. And yet they're still saying they don't have it on file. They do not have it in the system. And if they're doing it to me, they're going to be doing it to loads and loads of people. And I think people need to not suffer in silence. If you are being mucked and messed around by your local council who are not supporting you, I know it's a total bitch, I know it's a total ball ache, but you need to start putting in a complaint. That is the only way anyone is ever going to be taken serious. And with the cold weather setting in, I know that in Nuneaton, I mean, it's practically a dead town anyway, there's nothing ever open. I know that over the next couple of months, there's going to be quite a few homeless people who are literally going to try and sleep in whatever doorways are still available due to the lack of availability for homelessness. Now, I know everyone who becomes homeless doesn't always want to go in a shelter. They don't always want to have help and support from people, and that should be their choice. But at the same time, if you are asking for help and support, the help and support should be there. And people shouldn't feel guilty or embarrassed or shamed into asking for that help, because homelessness could happen to anyone at any time. It doesn't matter what country you live in. It doesn't matter how much money you've got. It doesn't matter how many family members you've got. It doesn't matter how many assets or anything you've got. Anyone in the world could become homeless at any time. And I think that in 2025, bearing in mind I'm in my 40s, for there not to be any sort of proper support or provisions in place to help people if that ever happens to them, and the support that is already there at the moment, a lot of it is from charities. It's not from the local government. It's not from the local councils. It's not even from, the main, from the prime minister. Prime minister? Yeah, prime minister. I don't know why I was thinking something in America then. I was going to say president. We don't have a president. We have a prime minister. We live in the UK. The laws haven't even been passed through Parliament to help and support people who are in those situations. And yet during COVID, they all of a sudden managed to rehouse or temporary house so many people who were homeless on the street to prevent COVID from spreading, not just in the UK, but in all across the world. Only for us to, as a species, to kind of pedal backwards again and be like, you know what, we don't care. We don't care if there's people who are homeless. And then to add insult to injury, you see it. I've actually seen it online, and I've seen it in places when I used to visit cities and stuff. Some of them are some can be quite accommodating for homelessness. There's a place in Rugby where if you're homeless and you go to one of the churches in Rugby, they've got these benches that you can lie on. They're not heated, but you could put a sleeping bag on them. And they've actually got USB portals in them. And I thought, oh my God, that is insane. You can actually go into this church. Not that I would say go there at night when the graves might be a bit scary, but you can actually plug your phone in to this. Like, it was just like a stone. And I'm sure I took some photos of it last time I was there. And then you go to other places and they're putting spikes on benches, and they're putting spikes on walls, and they're putting barricading doorways to stop people from using them if they're homeless, as if to say, fuck off, we don't want you here. And yet other places can be quite accommodating. But unfortunately, Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, the support, once all the homeless night shelters went, there is hardly any support now in Nuneaton for people who are potentially becoming homeless. I may change my mind about that statement over the next couple of months. I don't know. All I know is that the likelihood is when I am forced to leave the property that I am still paying rent on, I am going to be homeless. And I do not know where I'm going to end up. So be safe, be well. Thank you if you've just joined. I do apologise. I'm going to sign off now. That it is getting really, really cold outside. So think of your health and your safety and your well-being, because we've had all that rain and now we're getting the cold weather setting in. So just, if you see people as well, just walking in the street, or, just be vigilant. Hypothermia is so easy to catch. And I know I was one of those impressionable young teenagers once, and I'd be absolutely insane. I'd go out clubbing with my friends, and the moment we left the club, I'd walk home. And I'd walk home, and I'd get home still thinking I was okay, I was warm, and then I'd spend 2 days in bed because I had hypothermia. And this is the risk that a lot of people are going to end up with over the next couple of weeks. If the temperature keeps dropping the way it does, it is really, really easy to get hypothermia. And 9 times out of 10, people aren't even aware of the signs. I mean, one of the campaigns that the NHS has been doing a lot recently is about sepsis. It is not a joke. Septicemia is life-threatening, okay? And you see it on I've seen it on so many ambulances as they've been driving around the streets. These are the signs for sepsis. If in doubt, phone 999 straight away. But hypothermia is also very, very deadly and life-threatening. And so now the cold weather is setting in. Please be vigilant. Please be aware of not just of your own health and safety, but the safety and well-being of others. I'm not saying try and help people who are homeless or go over to someone who may be homeless, because you don't know how they're going to react. But if in doubt, if you see someone lying in the street, and especially on a cold night, phone 999. You don't even have to be near that person. You can just say, hi, it's just a quick call. I'm just phoning in. I think there's somebody who might be homeless and they're sleeping here. I'm a little bit worried about their well-being, especially now that it's winter. And you may end up saving someone's life. You don't know. But anyway, I'm going to sign off now. But like I said, stay safe, stay well, stay warm. And if you see anyone who you believe that may be potentially at risk, just make that call. Okay? What you don't want to be doing is hearing about them on the news the following day thinking, oh my God, I wish I'd rung in sooner. Because, like I said, one call could potentially save somebody's life. So, cold winter payments, see if you're entitled to them. If you are, try and claim them. You see, again, make sure you know when you're being paid and how you're being paid. If you're having trouble with Section 21s or anything to do with housing, Citizens Advice Bureau and Shelter are the best 2 websites to go to. So thank you very much for joining, and all the best. And thank you for listening. It's very much appreciated.